Hello class, and welcome to your experiment that you are going to do, uh, proving that photosynthesis is a real thing, and which we all know is real. But so this is really more about two things. One, it's about designing an experiment and writing a lab report. So it's good practice for how to do that. You're gonna have much more complicated lab reports that you'll have to write in other classes about questions that you don't already know the answer to. When you make it there, it will help you a lot if you're not also grappling with the structure of how to do an experiment and how to set one up. So that's really what we're focusing on learning through this is how to do science. But also, the other thing is that this experiment is basically for you to grow some plants. To get back in touch with nature, which is kind of one of the underlying themes in the class. So you can go and you can get some house plants, or you can plant something in the garden. Probably the best plant for this experiment is some lettuce, because lettuce grows really quickly. You can go from seed up to having something to eat in only a month, and most plants grow a lot slower than that. So that's my recommendation, and you should have those plants immediately, right? Like if you don't have them yet, you need to go get them, because without the plants, you can't really begin your experiment. So, but the purpose of this particular video is to give you some background on photosynthesis and respiration, which is where the energy in an ecosystem comes from. So, so you should already have this assignment, which you've downloaded from the Canvas page, and you should create a blank Google Doc that is going to serve as your lab report. So you title the Google Doc, your name, plant experiment, and share it with me. And this is going to grow. This isn't going to just be where you do the assignment that we're doing right now. You're going to add all the other parts of your lab report onto this document as well. So when you do the experiment, you'll put the procedure, you'll put the data that you get from the experiment, and you'll write your conclusion all in this document. But for today, you're watching this YouTube video where I'm going to guide you through how to fill in the blanks in the background research section. So let's get started with that. You probably already know some of this stuff from science classes you've taken in the past. All energy in an ecosystem originally comes from the sun. This is true of 99.9% of ecosystems on the planet. There are a few where bacteria are living off of volcanic gases on the bottom of the ocean floor, but for almost every ecosystem, the energy ultimately comes from the sun for all of life. Producers, like plants, then transform this light energy into chemical energy using photosynthesis. So energy can never be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed, right? So we take the light energy and we make it into this chemical energy that we can store and use in our bodies. How exactly does it do that, though? Well, it has a particular molecule that has the ability to catch sunlight. It coincidentally also is what makes plants green, and that is called chlorophyll. I'll actually write that one in here because that's a tough one to spell. I actually might even spell it wrong. Let's see what Google says. Oh, good, I've got it. That can be found in the chloroplast of plant cells. So plant cells and other producers have a special part of their cell or organelle that animal cells and other types of cells don't have, that is full of chlorophyll, and that's what makes them green. It's also what makes them able to do photosynthesis. What's the end result of this? Well, you've got your sunlight, you've got your water, you've got your carbon dioxide, and you put it all together to make a sugar. And so the plants make their own food. And that particular sugar that is produced is called glucose. There are different types of sugar, but this is the most basic, fundamental sugar of life. So what was that chemical reaction? We had said that It uses water, so we've got good old H2O plus carbon dioxide, which is CO2, and then plus light. And light is actually not a molecule, it's a wave, so we'll just write light. And then what does that create? What does that create? Well, I just said it creates glucose. The formula for that is C6H12O6. For any of you that haven't taken chemistry, that means, you know, the single carbon, 2 oxygens, the single oxygen here and 2 hydrogens. You take a bunch of those, combine them together, and you make a much bigger molecule that has 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. And then, lucky for us, it also produces a very awesome byproduct, oxygen. So this process of photosynthesis not only makes light for the plants, it also makes oxygen for the animals to breathe. So what does the plant do with the sugar? Well, the same thing that you do with sugar if you eat it. You get energy out of it. But how does that work? You perform a chemical reaction called cellular respiration. And this reaction is essentially the chemical reaction of life. All living things, regardless of how different they are, perform the same chemical reaction to turn their food into energy. This is, in a nutshell, essentially what it means to be alive. This chemical process stopping is, you know, what happens in death, right? You've still got all of your tissues and organs, but they're not doing this reaction anymore, so they're not animated. They don't have any energy. So one thing you'll notice is that these equations, right, the equation for photosynthesis is actually the equation for respiration. We just do it backwards, right? So we just undo what photosynthesis does, right? So the chemical reaction for cellular respiration is basically, you know, the same sort of thing. You've got your glucose, which is your C6H12O6. And then you've got your oxygen that you breathe in. And plants do this too, right? So plants make their food and then eat it. We just eat the plants. So we've got the glucose from the plants, we breathe in the oxygen, and then what does that make as a waste product? Well, it makes CO2 and water, H2O, and energy, which is, you know, like light, but obviously we're not making light energy, we're making chemical energy. So respiration, as it is used in everyday English, you've probably heard before, means to breathe, right? Now this type of respiration is absolutely necessary for cellular respiration because, well, in order to make energy, you don't just need food, you also need oxygen, right? So that breathing is what brings the oxygen into your body to give it to your cells so that they can do this reaction, right? So you want to write that here. This type of respiration is a prerequisite for cellular respiration because it's what brings the oxygen into your body so you can do the chemical reaction. And living things don't actually burn up all the energy that they get in cellular respiration. They use some of those nutrients and energy for growth, right? If you think about it, if you used up all the energy, you wouldn't have any raw materials to actually grow or to heal. So we can actually measure how much photosynthesis and respiration an organism is doing by how much it grows. And that's what you're going to do in this experiment. You are going to look at the growth of a plant to learn about how much photosynthesis and respiration it's doing. So now that you've got all of those answers all filled out, I want you to take these paragraphs that you have here, copy them, paste them into that Google Doc that you're going to use for your experiment under a background research section, and then give yourself a nice little pat on the back because you just did the first part of your lab report. So like I said, now if you haven't gotten your plants, you need to go out there and get them because you're going to need them to figure out your experiment, and you want to get started as soon as possible because plants take time to grow. This is not something that you can do overnight. You have to give your plants time to grow. So don't procrastinate on getting started on this one. Mr. Ben signing off. As always, let me know if you have any questions about any of this.